Dora Ice Cave defies every law of nature. The ice grows thickest in June and melts in winter. During summer months, when the surface world burns in heat, this underground passage creates glaciers. The ice expands during the hottest months and melts when winter arrives. For centuries, nobody understood how this worked. A local teenager named Alois Kovarik solved the mystery in 1898. He discovered that the cave traps sinking winter air, freezing groundwater that battles straight through the summer heat. That same teenager would later become a Yale physicist and make history by becoming the first person to date the Earth using radioactivity. All because he solved an Iowa ice cave mystery. That is fact 1, the backwards ice cave. Now, before we move to other weird fact about Iowa, that is not what it seems, and with proofs. Welcome to Life in the State. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss interesting videos like this. Also like and share this video with friends. Fact 2, the Dust Mountain Range. Posted 200 feet above the Missouri River floodplain sits a 200-mile ridge system that shouldn't exist anywhere. It's not made of rock. It's made entirely of wind-blown dust. Glacial flour. Fine silt ground to powder by ice-age glaciers and drifted into massive piles by relentless winds over thousands of years. While loess deposits exist worldwide, deposits this thick and carved this intricately are found in only 2 places on Earth: Western Iowa and China's Shaanxi province. A globally rare terrain hiding in a state most people fly over without a second thought. Fact 3, the lake that becomes an ocean. Lake Red Rock sits peacefully as a 15,250-acre reservoir most of the time. Calm, contained, predictable. Then the rains come, the floods arrive, and this lake becomes something else entirely. Something dangerous. It quadruples in size. It transforms into a 65,500-acre inland sea holding 467 billion gallons of water. This metamorphosis can happen in as little as 5 days. 5 days from lake to ocean. A lake that spends its entire life waiting to become an ocean. Fact 4, the glacier-skipped region. 24,000 square miles. That's how much of the Midwest was buried under mile-thick glaciers during the Ice Age. But then something happened that shouldn't have been possible. The glaciers stopped. They skipped an entire region. Northeast Iowa, a 24,000 square mile pocket of land, was never touched by those advancing sheets of ice. For centuries, nobody understood why. Researchers eventually discovered something extraordinary. The fractured bedrock in that region drained glacial meltwater so efficiently that it starved the glaciers of the lubrication they needed to slide forward. The ice couldn't move. The ice couldn't advance. And so northeast Iowa was left alone while everything around it transformed. Fact 5, the Switzerland of Iowa. 500-foot bluffs rise from carved limestone caves. A state everyone assumes is flat suddenly reveals vertical geography that defies expectations. Pikes Peak State Park towers 500 feet above the Mississippi River. Named after the same Zebulon Pike who explored Colorado, this limestone cliff overlooks the exact spot where Marquette and Joliet first encountered the upper Mississippi River in 1673. Some Minnesota bluffs claim more height. But Iowa's peak is something different. It's a sacred time capsule sitting at the intersection of exploration history and 500-million-year-old rock. Fact 6, the natural air conditioners. Fissures vent air from year-round underground ice, creating natural air conditioners that have allowed something impossible to survive. Ice Age plants, vegetation that should have vanished 10,000 years ago when the glaciers retreated. They're still there, still alive, still thriving in those temperature-controlled microclimates hidden between the limestone and soil. A piece of the Ice Age still running in Iowa. Fact 7, the Cosmic Mounds. The Effigy Mounds National Monument protects 206 prehistoric earthwork structures across Iowa's landscape. But these aren't random piles. They're a prehistoric gallery. 31 massive animal-shaped mounds depicting birds and bears built between 700 and 1200 AD. The Marching Bear Group is a standout. 10 bears walking single file for nearly a quarter mile along a 500-foot bluff. Cosmic maps aligned with the stars. Ancient astronomers encoding celestial knowledge into the Earth itself. LiDAR scanning is uncovering details that went unseen for a millennium. Tiny bear paws hidden in the geometry that no human eye could see from the ground. Fact 8, the impossible snail. Inside those algic talus slopes, hidden in the fractured rock vents that breathe ancient ice, lives a quarter-inch ghost that completely cheated extinction. The Iowa Pleistocene snail was believed to have disappeared 10,000 years ago. Gone. Extinct. Erased from Earth during the same megafauna collapse that wiped out mammoths and saber-toothed cats. But in 1955, scientists made a discovery that rewrote paleontological records. The snail was alive. Still alive. Hidden on Iowa's algic talus slopes, surviving in the only place on Earth cold enough to sustain it. Fact 9. The ancient lineage. The Iowa Pleistocene snail's lineage stretches back 400,000 years. Only 60,000 individuals remain today, restricted to 30 hillsides scattered across Earth. These living relics survive by eating maple leaves in a strict thermal window between 14 degrees Fahrenheit and 52 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. That's the only temperature range where they can exist. The underground ice creates this narrow band of survivable conditions. If that natural air conditioning system ever fails, the survival streak that's 4 times older than human civilization ends. Just like that. Fact 10. The hidden asteroid crater. Beneath the streets of Pocahontas County, Iowa, lies something that governments kept secret for decades. A crater. Not visible from the ground. Not marked on maps. Not mentioned in history books. The Manson impact structure is a 22-mile wide basin carved into Earth's crust by a 1.2-mile wide asteroid traveling at 45,000 miles per hour. This collision pulverized 1.2 billion-year-old rock. The ground rebounded. It splashed upward like water. A central peak rose 4,000 feet into the sky, visible only to the instruments of modern science. Fact 11. The dinosaur killer suspect. For 5 years, the Manson impact structure was the leading suspect in the world's greatest mystery, the extinction of the dinosaurs. Scientists theorized that this Iowa crater was the killing blow, the impact that ended the age of reptiles. Civilization's entire understanding of extinction hung on whether this Iowa farm could be the site of cosmic doom. Then in 1998, United States Geological Survey scientists redated the shocked feldspar from the site using precise radiometric analysis. 74.1 million years ago. 10 million years too early. The dinosaurs didn't die here. They died in Mexico. Fact 12. The double impact theory. What if Manson wasn't alone? What if there was a double whammy? A series of impacts that weakened global ecosystems before the final blow arrived? Even as a runner-up, the Iowa blast was catastrophic. A world-altering event that most people will never know happened beneath their feet. The blast vaporized everything within a 650-mile radius. It launched shock quartz as far as Colorado. It created a crater so massive that the Chesapeake Bay impact site looks small by comparison. Fact 13. The soft water mystery. The town of Manson itself was famous for something completely different before scientists knew about the crater. Mysteriously soft water. In 1912, drillers struck something strange while digging wells. A jumbled mess of rock fragments underground, later identified as impact breccia, pulverized rock from the ancient collision that acted as a natural filter. The water flowing through it became so uniquely soft that the town branded itself the soft water capital of the world. But there was a catch. The super soft water carried fluoride levels of 10 milligrams per liter, more than double the EPA safety limit. Fact 14. The second asteroid crater. Directly under the city of Dora, another basin sits as shallow as 50 feet below the surface. A 3.5-mile wide crater formed 470 million years ago when a meteor slammed into a shallow tropical sea with a force of 1,000 megatons. Confirmed in 2012 by gravity surveys and electromagnetic scanning. This crater likely belongs to the Ordovician impact spike, a prehistoric meteor shower that peppered North America with cosmic violence. 2 asteroid craters buried under one state. 2 cosmic scars. 2 impacts that reshaped continents. And neither one is visible from the surface. Fact 15. The Yellowstone fingerprints. In 1960, geologists discovered something else buried in the lowest hills. A gray ribbon of volcanic ash. A bookmark from 640,000 years ago when the Yellowstone supervolcano erupted with apocalyptic force. While the primary fallout was several inches thick across the Midwest, Specific pockets in Harrison County still hold massive 15-inch lenses of that ancient debris. A supersonic cloud of glass shards that choked wildlife across the heartland. This was the breath of a continent's most dangerous geological ticking time bomb. Yellowstone is still buried in Iowa. Fact 16. The tropical ocean. 375 million years ago, Iowa was underwater. Not partially submerged. Not covered by shallow lakes. Completely underwater. A vast tropical ocean stretched across the continent where cornfields stand today. Warm seas. 86-degree Fahrenheit water. Barrier reefs grew here during the Devonian age of fish. A buzzing underwater city where predators dominated and ecosystems thrived in conditions completely alien to modern Earth. Fact 17. The accidental fossil gorge. The Great Flood of 1993 was catastrophic. Water flew over the Coralville Lake spillway for 28 consecutive days. The spillway eroded away 17 feet of soil, then 5 feet of solid limestone. The water carved through layers of earth like a surgeon's knife, peeling back centuries, peeling back millennia, peeling back time itself. When the floodwaters finally receded, scientists made a discovery that stunned the paleontological community. A 375-million-year-old seabed lay exposed to the open air for the first time in geological history. The Devonian Fossil Gorge transformed overnight into one of the world's most accessible paleontology sites. Fact 18. The Paleontology Pilgrimage. 100,000 visitors came in just months after the floodwaters receded. They walked across a prehistoric tropical ocean floor. They saw fossilized coral frozen in Iowa's bedrock. They touched ancient sea life preserved in stone. A natural disaster that accidentally became humanity's window into a world that vanished before dinosaurs even existed. The Fossil Gorge tells a story written in limestone. Honeycomb corals, trilobites, hexagonal coral formations identical to the ones that build Michigan's Petoskey stones. Fact 19. The 30-foot predator. The spookiest resident of Iowa's ancient seas was the Dunley osteus, a 30-foot armored predator whose bony plates were found on site. Imagine that. A creature that could swallow a horse. A creature that hunted in Iowa's ancient seas. A creature that dominated an ecosystem no human eye ever witnessed. This was the apex predator of a world that existed before dinosaurs roamed the earth. Fact 20. The crinoid explosion. 340 million years ago, the story changed. The area around Burlington was covered by a sea so filled with crinoids, feathery animals from the starfish family, that their skeletons built up to form limestone beds hundreds of feet thick. When those crinoids died, they fell. They accumulated. They compressed. They transformed into the Burlington limestone that geologists worldwide recognize as a reference standard. This limestone is so densely packed with crinoid remains that it's often called crinoidal limestone. Fact 21. The crinoid capital. Burlington earned its claim as the crinoid capital of the world. Not because it sounds impressive, because the city is literally built on hundreds of feet of prehistoric skeletons. The Des Moines County Heritage Center houses the world-renowned Tibbetts Collection. 3,000 specimens. Rare specimens. Perfectly preserved crowns frozen in stone. A testament to an ocean filled with millions of creatures living in perfect ecological balance. Fact 22. The farmer's split-second decision. In 1931, a farmer named Bernice Bean pulled a 600-pound limestone slab out of a rock crusher at the Grand Quarry. A split-second decision. A moment of curiosity. He unknowingly saved a prehistoric mass burial. The slab was only 3 feet by 5 feet, but contained 183 starfish, 12 sea urchins, 2 trilobites. The preservation was so outrageous that some species still showed their original color differences. Shades of snowy white, deep purple, colors that had survived 340 million years locked in stone. Fact 23. The greatest fossil rescue. Bean's decision to pull that slab from the crusher instead of letting it be crushed to dust became one of the greatest fossil rescues in Earth's history. That rock now sits as a centerpiece in Iowa's State Historical Museum in Des Moines. A single moment of curiosity preserved an entire ecosystem from the depths of time. A reminder that history often depends on the smallest decisions made by ordinary people. Fact 24. The Lewis and Clark specimen. The only surviving biological specimen from the Lewis and Clark expedition came from Iowa. In 1804, Sergeant Patrick Gass discovered a Cretaceous fish jawbone in the Missouri River bluffs of Harrison County, named Saurodon lanciformis. It became the first fossil ever described from the famous Nebraska chalk. While nearly all 122 animal specimens collected during the legendary expedition disappeared over time, this jawbone survived, along with approximately 220 pressed plants at Philadelphia's Academy of Natural Sciences. Fact 25. The expedition's legacy. The entire natural history record of America's most legendary exploration depends on what Sergeant Patrick Gass found in an Iowa riverbank. And the only thing that survived came from Iowa's riverbanks. A jawbone that became the gateway to understanding an entire era of scientific discovery. The Lewis and Clark expedition documented the West, but Iowa preserved the only proof that they were ever there. Fact 26. The flatness myth. The official record states that Iowa is flat. Pancake flat. Boring flat. The kind of landscape that puts people to sleep. The kind of state that seems to have nothing interesting about its terrain. But according to researchers at the University of Kansas, that narrative is dead wrong. Iowa ranks as only the 18th flattest state in America. Almost 64% of its terrain is officially classified as not flat. Not even close. Fact 27. The flatter neighbors. Several of Iowa's own neighbors are way more steady. Illinois ranks second flattest. Minnesota ranks fifth. Between the rugged lowest hills in the west and the carved driftless area in the northeast, Iowa isn't a level field. It's a land of subtle, constant movement that defies the laziest stereotype in American geography. The stereotype is wrong. The state is more complex than anyone imagines. Fact 28. The elevation paradox. Iowa's lowest point is a 480-foot riverbank in Keokuk. But here's the revelation. That lowest point is higher than the lowest spots in 36 other states, including every state in New England, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maine. All of them have bottoms lower than Iowa's supposedly flat floor. Only 13 states, mostly in the mountainous west, have elevations that sit higher than Iowa's basement. Fact 29. The continental pedestal. From that riverside in Keokuk to the highest cornfield at Hawkeye Point, Iowa rises 1,190 feet. A chill continental pedestal. A massive elevation that most people completely miss because they're looking at the wrong landscape. The state sits on elevated ground. Standing in Iowa means you're always standing higher than you think. Higher than 36 other states. Higher than most of America's eastern seaboard. Fact 30. The cornfield divide. The state's continental divide sits in a cornfield. On Highway 44, a simple roadside sign marks the Missouri-Mississippi watershed divide at 1,440 feet. Most people picture the Rocky Mountains when they hear Continental Divide. Iowa's version looks like nothing special, just a marker in a farm field. But that humble sign marks something profound. The boundary between North America's two biggest river systems. Fact 31. The raindrop journey. Raindrops falling yards apart embark on wildly different 2,000-mile journeys. One flows to the Missouri River system, the other to the upper Mississippi. Both eventually meet in the Gulf of Mexico. But this regional divide separates the continent's two biggest drainage systems, a marker in a cornfield that determines the fate of water across millions of square miles. A humble sign marking massive continental importance. Fact 32. The complete drainage basin. Every single square inch of Iowa sits within the Mississippi-Missouri drainage basin, the fourth largest on the planet. Whether a drop falls in the northwest corner or the southeast tip, gravity pulls it toward the same destination. The Gulf of Mexico, a 90-day, 2,000-mile journey from an Iowa cornfield to the Louisiana coast. The entire state is part of a single massive hydrological system that dominates North America's water flow. Fact 33. The wetland loss. Iowa has lost 95% of its original wetlands. The state once operated as a massive liquid sponge. Early settlers in the north counted 200 prairie pothole wetlands per square mile. Straight-line travel was nearly impossible. Today, that sponge has been wrung completely dry. Starting in the late 1800s, quasi-governmental drainage districts used eminent domain to install thousands of miles of underground tiles. The state fundamentally re-engineered the heartland's hydrology. trading millions of acres of natural filters for high-yield productivity. Fact 34. The sinkhole problem. The state has over 40,000 sinkholes. Modern LiDAR mapping has identified over 40,000 sinkholes and depressions across Iowa's landscape. These pits sit over ancient soluble limestone where entire creeks routinely vanish underground only to resurface miles away. But beyond the geography, there's a darker problem. Since sinkholes bypass the soil's natural filtration, surface contaminants like fertilizer or manure can reach the drinking water supply in hours. In Iowa's karst zones, the surface and the aquifer are dangerously connected. Fact 35. The glacial lakes. Iowa has 34 natural lakes, and every single one is glacial. A 14,000-year-old scar left by the retreating Des Moines Lobe Glacier. Today, Iowans build what nature didn't. Nearly 70% of the state's lakes are man-made reservoirs. 34 gifts from the Ice Age. Everything else is engineered water. The state's natural lakes are a gift from glaciers that melted thousands of years ago. Fact 36. The derecho arrival. On August 10, 2020, the derecho arrived without warning. A single afternoon, one catastrophic storm. The Midwest derecho sustained 140-mile-per-hour winds for nearly an hour. A Category 4 hurricane-force inland wind event. It ripped across 57 counties. It flattened 14 million acres of crops. In Cedar Rapids, 65% of the urban tree canopy disappeared in minutes. A storm that attacked without warning. Fact 37. The satellite scar. The damage was so intense that satellites captured a massive brown scar cutting through the heartland's green terrain, a mark visible from space. Iowa's most dangerous weather didn't come from the coast. It came directly from above. The costliest thunderstorm in United States history. $11.2 billion. A single afternoon that rewrote disaster records. A visible scar that proved the power of weather. Fact 38. The future threat. Scientists are predicting that these extreme weather events are only getting worse. More frequent, more intense, more catastrophic. The question isn't whether Iowa will face another disaster. The question is when. The state faces an uncertain future marked by increasingly severe weather systems that defy prediction and preparation. Fact 39. The big spring flow. Iowa has a spring that can push 150,000 gallons per minute along the Turkey River in Clayton County. Big Spring acts as a massive high-speed plumbing system for the Iowa countryside. Normally, it flows at 20,000 to 30,000 gallons per minute. During heavy rains, it explodes from karst caves at an outrageous 150,000. Despite those intense surges, the water stays a steady 48 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, making for a perfect oxygen-rich environment for the 150,000 rainbow trout raised there annually. Fact 40. The aquifer tracking. Since 1981, scientists have used the Big Spring site to track the speed at which surface fertilizer from cornfield travels through the aquifer and erupts into the spring. The answer is scarily fast. Days, sometimes hours. The water moves rapidly through Iowa's karst limestone, carrying contaminants with it. A hidden danger flowing beneath the agricultural landscape. Fact 41. The eerie Des Moines Lobe. Iowa's last glacier showed up 5,000 years after the Ice Age was supposed to end. While the rest of the world was warming up, the Des Moines Lobe made a late-season push. This misfit arrived 13,800 years ago, thousands of years after the Ice Age's peak had already passed. Pushing south at a breakneck 1 to 2 kilometers per year, this thin sheet of ice flattened established spruce forests. Geologists still find ancient wood chunks buried in the glacial till. Fact 42. The late arrival glacier. The Des Moines Lobe literally ran over the land. It showed up late, moved fast, and created the fertile Kettled Plains of central Iowa. The last glacier to hit the Midwest didn't get the memo that the Ice Age was over. It arrived when it shouldn't have. It carved the landscape when glaciers were supposed to be retreating. It created the agricultural foundation of modern Iowa. Fact 43. The jungle phase. During the Permian period, roughly 300 million years ago, Iowa hit its jungle phase. The state sat directly on the equator of the supercontinent Pangaea. Instead of corn, Iowa had thick tropical swamps filled with 100-foot lepidodendron scale trees, giant bark-covered club mosses, not actual wood. Iowa's geology is a layer cake of rising and falling seas. When waters receded, These massive jungles thrived, eventually compressing into cold deposits found today. Fact 44. The giant insects. Because oxygen levels in these swamps were way higher than modern atmosphere, the Iowa jungle was home to dragonflies with 2-foot wingspans and millipedes the size of canoes. A prehistoric ecosystem so alien that no modern human could survive in it. Giant insects, towering vegetation, a tropical world that existed in a place now famous for corn. The ancient past completely different from today. Fact 45. The crinoid explosion. About 340 million years ago, the area around Burlington was covered by a sea filled with so many crinoids, feathery animals from the starfish family, that their skeletons built up to form limestone beds hundreds of feet thick. This Burlington limestone is famous globally as a geological reference, often called crinoidal limestone because it's composed almost entirely of these ancient sea lilies. A geological bookmark of massive biodiversity. Fact 46. The Pikes Peak Explorer. Pikes Peak State Park features one of the highest and most iconic overlooks on the entire Mississippi River. Named after Zebulon Pike, the same explorer the Colorado Peak is named after. He scouted this limestone cliff years before heading west. The view looks down on the exact spot where Marquette and Joliet first encountered the upper Mississippi in 1673. A convergence of exploration history and geological significance. Fact 47. The Marching Bears. The Marching Bear Group at Effigy Mounds is the standout structure. 10 bears walking single file for nearly a quarter mile along a 500-foot bluff. Cosmic maps aligned with the stars. Ancient astronomers encoding celestial knowledge into the Earth itself. LiDAR scanning is uncovering details that went unseen for a millennium. Tiny bear paws hidden in the geometry that no human eye could see from the ground. Fact 48. The Cave Ice Mystery Solver. A local teenager named Alois Kovarik solved the Dora Ice Cave mystery in 1898. He discovered that the cave traps sinking winter air, freezing groundwater that battles straight through the summer heat. That same teenager would later become a Yale physicist and make history by becoming the first person to date the Earth using radioactivity. All because he solved an Iowa ice cave mystery. A teenage discovery that launched a world-changing scientific career. Fact 49. The Lust Deposits. While lust deposits exist worldwide, deposits in western Iowa are so thick and intricately carved that they rival only one other place on Earth. China's Shaanxi Province. A globally rare terrain hiding in a state most people fly over without a second thought. The dust hills represent a geological anomaly. A landscape type that appears in only 2 significant locations on the planet. Western Iowa is one of them. Fact 50. The Unwritten History. Iowa is hiding stories that weren't written in textbooks. Craters that governments kept secret. Snails that cheated extinction. Oceans that existed beneath cornfields. Glaciers that arrived late. Asteroid impacts that shook continents. Yellowstone ash that drifted across the sky. A state that contains the physical evidence of Earth's deepest history. Iowa is a palimpsest, a layer cake of deep time, a monument to natural processes that shape the world we live in today. These 50 facts reveal Iowa as it truly is. Not the flat, boring landscape of popular imagination, but a complex, layered, impossible state. A place where ice grows in summer, where dust mountains rival China's geology, where lakes become oceans in 5 days, where asteroid craters hide beneath farmland, where ancient snails refuse to go extinct, where tropical oceans left their fossils preserved in stone, where glaciers arrived thousands of years too late, where weather leaves scars visible from space. Iowa is not what it seems. The proof is everywhere, buried beneath the cornfields, hidden in the hillsides, frozen in the limestone, written in the rock. The truth is darker, more complex, more impossible than anyone ever imagined.